if we start with potentially the best deals of the window, Paul, I'm going to come to you. Who have you pinpointed that when you looked at them moving from X to Y, you actually said that's a really good signing?
There's one that really stands out for me, and there's a bias in there, but it's Calvin Phillips. I just think it's a fantastic signing for both him and for West Ham. I think what he will bring to that side, the stability, what Declan Rice left there, the recruitment at West Ham has been sensational. I think since Declan Rice has left. But I think with Calvin Phillips going in there and taking up that more defensive role, I know Paqueta's injured at the moment, but you look at the attacking talent that they've got. Kudus is away on international duty, but Paqueta, Kudus, Bowen, and particularly James Ward-Prowse, I think it just frees them and gives them so much more license to go forward. So the attacking football that the West Ham fans have been crying out for, and David Moyes has been criticised for his defensive style, if you like. Listen, Calvin Phillips will bolster that defensive side. It will make them very, very hard to beat. And I just think if you look at it from another angle, he frees up all the forward players, especially James Ward-Prowse in attacking areas. I think they're not just signing a quality player, they're signing an athlete. They're not signing a player who's going to take 2, 3, 4 games to get match fit. He's fit. He's like ridiculously fit, one of the fittest players in the Premier League. As you see where Gareth Southgate puts him in for England when he hasn't played at Manchester City. He's a player that not necessarily have a point to prove, but he's got his eye on the plane to Germany at the end of the season, and rightly so, because he's a quality player. And I just think that the loan fee potential there for a longer term deal, if he can settle in London, listen, we know he's a Leeds boy, we know he's gone across to Manchester, which is not too far from here. If the move down to London works for him, it could be a really, really good signing for both parties. And I think the impact that he'll have between now and the end of the season gives him the opportunity to keep competing in Europe, to keep pushing for that European place in the league. And listen, they're sat 6th in the Premier League, still competing in Europe with half the fans unhappy at the manager. Not a bad place to be honest.
Definitely can be a lot worse. That's absolutely for sure. Pete, if that deal does work out, if Calvin Phillips does flourish at West Ham, can we expect the deal to be permanent? Could we see a move actually happening long term for Calvin Phillips?
Yeah, I think there's a real potential it could become permanent. Obviously, Manchester City will be open to that permanent move as long as they get a decent transfer fee for him. Probably looking at £40 million plus for Calvin Phillips. Again, if he does well at West Ham and then goes away to the Euros and does well for England, it's just going to increase his price tag as well and probably enhance his whole reputation and maybe bring more clubs to the table, because I'm sure if Calvin Phillips does become available in the summer, which we fully expect him to do, I'm sure there'll be a number of clubs, not just West Ham, who would be interested in the former Leeds midfielder. If he can regain his form that he showed during his time at Leeds, I'm sure a lot of Premier League clubs will be interested in Calvin Phillips come this summer as well. So West Ham, obviously in the box seat, maybe to make that deal permanent right now. If he goes there, impresses and settles into the club quite well, I'm sure Calvin Phillips will be more than happy to turn that loan move into a permanent deal as well, as would David Moyes. I'm sure David Moyes would like to sign him permanently now if he could, but the price tag's probably just out of reach for West Ham, especially in this January transfer window. But I think definitely come the summer, more clubs will have more leeway, bigger budgets to maybe go and do deals for Calvin Phillips. So the ball is in Calvin Phillips' court right now. If he goes and impresses, it'll be more than just West Ham who will be trying to sign him in the summer.
And without stating the obvious, I think the David Moyes will have played a huge part in that transfer. You know, the man management, the personality of the manager. And we all know that his future's up in the air. We don't know what's happening with him. So I think the future of David Moyes would play a huge part in the potential permanent signing of Calvin.
Yeah, I think that's right. And again, that remains to be seen too. So that's one to keep an eye on Football Insider. Pete, if you had to pick any best deals of the window, have you got any names that you'd go for and you'd say actually you think they were either A, stand out, or B, they could really go on and flourish?
Well, there's only been 18 signings in the Premier League, so there is slim pickings to choose from. Like Paul said, Calvin Phillips is a great deal. I'd probably look at Timo Werner at Tottenham. I think it was a move that sort of caught people by surprise. No one expected it. Obviously, he's played a few games now, and I think he's done okay. It's obviously, I think, still more to come from Timo Werner. But yeah, they're signing a player who's come over from RB Leipzig where he wasn't playing. He's a versatile player who can play out wide or down the middle, so he definitely adds options to Ange Postecoglou's side. I thought he had a decent game against Brentford last night as well, helped Spurs in that comeback win, and he could be vital for Spurs in this push for a top 4 finish or even a title challenge if Spurs can maintain their form between now and the end of the season as well. But he's a different option for Ange Postecoglou. As I said, with Son away on international duty, I think he slotted in quite well, and he's got great experience, a great CV. Remember, he's a Champions League winner from his time at Chelsea as well. So I think he could be he's obviously started off quite well. And if he can add a few more goals between now and the end of the season, he could be a really smart signing for Tottenham.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, again, remains to be seen really if that one's made permanent as well. One I'd like to ask both of you is, what about Jadon Sancho going the other way to Dortmund? Do you think that actually could be a really positive move for him? Although it's, of course, leaving the Premier League.
Go on, Paul, you go.
For him, yeah, absolutely. And I've spoke before on Football Insider about what people haven't looked into this transfer. For me, it was a nod in the direction of the manager. It was Manchester United backing the manager because they paid a huge transfer fee for Jadon Sancho. He's not performed. He's underperformed. The expectation level hasn't been reached. They paid a huge transfer fee for him. They've paid huge wages on a regular basis for him, and they haven't been able to get the best out of him. And they've fallen out with the manager. Yet the club have backed the manager after all what they've spent and all the whole outlay. They've backed the manager, and the manager said he doesn't want him in the squad, and they've shipped him out. I think the frustrating thing for Manchester United fans is that as soon as he goes back to Dortmund, in his first game back, he's kissing the badge. And there's more coming out. There's more stories about him and about his personality that we're learning. But I think he's got a job to get his career back on track. And I think he realised that, regardless of how he is as a person off the field. He's been clever enough to realise that he's once flourishing young career of this outstanding young footballer who hit the heights with the England squad, etc., has really hit the buffers, and it's hit the buffers in a hard way. And he's had to get out of Manchester United for his own personal reasons, and he's had to get his career back on track, and by going somewhere familiar to him, somewhere that he knows, somewhere that he's flourished in the past. I think that was a good option for him. I really do. I suspect he had the option of going to a lot of other places, but familiarity and being loved is clearly something that he wanted. Players respond to different things, man management styles, familiarity, comfort, etc. It's clearly an environment that he likes, and it's probably one that will work for him. I've said it before, what's to say that he doesn't come back at the end of the season to Manchester United with a different manager? I don't think he's the quality of player for the transfer fee that they paid and the expectation levels of him. He's not shown that yet. But there still potentially could be a future at Manchester United for him, should Erik ten Hag not be there in the summer. But for him personally, it's a good move.
Yeah. Pete, what are your thoughts on that potentially?
Yeah, I think it was a move that suited all parties that were involved. He wasn't going to get back into the Manchester United team after that much publicised public fallout with Erik ten Hag. He needed to go out and play regular first-team football. Like Paul's mentioned, he's gone to a club that he knows well and a club that obviously loves him in return. So he's gone there. He's back playing football. He's had an impact straight away as well. He's created a couple of assists, I think, already in a few games for them. So he's back playing football with a smile on his face. So, yeah, it's a big 6 months for Jadon Sancho to be playing football for Borussia Dortmund. He'll be determined to have a good end to the season, and then he'll go back to Old Trafford in the summer, see what's going on there, because there is going to be big changes at Old Trafford under the Ineos now part ownership, and there'll be changes in the recruitment staff. There'll be changes in transfers, and definitely there'll be changes with new players coming and going at Old Trafford this season, or in the summer, sorry. And there is a possibility of potentially a new manager being there as well, so it would be a clean slate.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.